Okay, we're going to call the meeting to order, and it is 1:11, and I just wanted to do roll call first. So Irma, she is absent. Cynthia, she is absent also. Matilda,
Present. Here.
Letty, she is absent. Leanne,
Here.
Susie,
Here.
Grace.
Here.
And as you notice, Grace White is one of our new members. This is her first meeting. She's from Fort Worth, and she's a public member. And we still have one opening, a public vacancy. So if you all know anybody interested, let's see if they can get through and join our board. All right, so do I have a motion to accept the absences that we have?
So move.
Second.
Second? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, those opposed? All right. I'll go ahead and sign this. All right, has everybody had a chance to read the meeting minutes? Do we have any changes or corrections? All right, all those in favor, or let's see, a motion to approve the minutes as they stand?
So move.
I'll second.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
All right, no opposition, so we'll go ahead and sign those minutes. Okay, so this is our public comment section, and we do have Deborah King with the Texas Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics that has requested to speak.
Hi, my name is Deborah King, and I'm representing the Texas Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics. And I'm really here just to say thank you to everyone today, because our members are very happy with the quick response they're getting when they have issues with online issues of renewing their memberships, and people that are coming into the state that have contacted me have been very happy with what to do, and we're getting very positive response. We also appreciate the fact that TDLR sent people from their staff to our annual meeting in Georgetown just last month, and it was actually the end of March. But anyway, they really appreciated them talking to them and being able to ask specific questions. So I think that's a very positive thing that they're doing, is coming. And I also we've been following Senate Bill 4007, which I see you're going to have an update of. But I also want to say that I'm very grateful we're in Texas Department of Licensing and Regulation, because I've been following the Department of State Health Services bill that was going to create the Health Executive Committee, and that bill in the House has died, and there's may require a special session to actually get those people their licenses to renew, and so I'm glad we have ours for now. Anyway, thank you.
Very good.
Did you have any questions? No. All right.
No, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, so this is section for staff reports. So our first report is from the executive office, and Nick will give it to us.
Yes, ma'am. Madam Chair and members, I'm Nick Voinis of TDLR, and here to bring you our executive staff report today. As most of you know, since your last meeting in September, our longtime executive director, Bill Kuntz, retired, and Deputy Executive Director Brian Francis was promoted to replace Bill. And after that, to handle the growing workload at TDLR, Brian hired a Deputy Executive Director and a Chief of Staff. Our new Deputy Executive Director is Carla James, who came to us from the Controller's Office, and she is responsible for operations and regulatory services. And I came over from UT Austin and handle external services as the Chief of Staff. As you can imagine, our focus the last few months has been with the 85th session of the Texas Legislature. The State House and Senate convened in January and will meet regularly until Monday, May 29th, so about 11 days from now. There were more than 6,500 bills that were filed, and we've been tracking a total of about 336. which included 130 directly related to current TDLR programs, 20 that dealt with new or transfer programs, and 186 that, if enacted, would affect agency operations. It's been a total team effort so far, as our staff has been busy analyzing, monitoring bills, providing feedback, and resource testimony. Be easy for you guys to keep up with our legislation on our website. If you haven't already, just go to our website, tdlr.texas.gov, and click on the Capitol picture, and it'll take you to a listing of the legislation that we're following by program, and it's being updated constantly. So feel free to go there. In addition to keeping up with pending legislation, you can also keep up with TDLR news on our website as well. And if you're there, I want to remind you to sign up for the email notifications that we have to help you. Our social media, please like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter if you would, and keep up with more of our news. But back to the website for a minute, I wanted to share with you some traffic numbers and as they pertain to this program. We had in 2016, the TDLR website had a total of 9.5 million page views, and the Dietitians website had more than 37,500 page views during that same time. An interesting side note is that only 7% of those folks visiting your pages did so from a mobile device, meaning a smartphone or a tablet, and while 93% addressed your site from a PC. The top reasons for visiting the Dietitians website, top 5 reasons. Number 1, laws and rules. Number 2, dietitians exam. Number 3, applications and forms. 4, the FAQs. And 5th, continuing education. So, have any questions? Be glad to try to answer them, or otherwise, thank you.
All right. Thank you very much and welcome. All right, the next report is the Compliance Division. Stephen?
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and members. Is this on? Does it sound like it's on? I am Stephen Mills, Health Professions Section Manager. It's great to see you all again, and it's good to see you for the first time as well. Welcome. This is
Mary Hoffman, and I'm a compliance specialist.
Mary works with the Dietitians program, and she actually attended the Academy meeting in March. So, we prepared a written Compliance Division staff report that was in your packet, and I thought I would go over a few things. The transition for the Dietitians program, you know, your last meeting was September 15th, right, just a couple of weeks before. The transition, of course, was October 1st, and it feels like sort of ancient history now because we've moved on to phase 2. What we're focusing on with the Dietitians program and the phase 1 programs is maintenance and improvement. And our health professions consolidation team that I mentioned to you last time continues to meet regularly and is working on the phase 2 issues and anything that might sort of bubble up from the phase 1 programs. Everything has been going well. We continue to look at new web content. Just today we updated an FAQ for the dietitian licensing program. Our application forms are in good shape. IT topics, we do have established a Versa improvement team. Versa is our internal licensing system, and Versa Online is the external portion of that. So it's through Versa Online that you apply for your licenses and renew your licenses. We have a team that meets regularly to coordinate changes, discuss possible improvements, and that will be an ongoing activity. Overall, the transition is considered to be successful, and it resulted, I think, in minimal disruption to the normal operation of the dietitians program and the other 6 programs that came with it. You'll hear more from licensing and some of the other groups in a little bit about what's going on since transition in terms of license issuance and so forth. Personnel updates. When you met in September, our team was only partially complete, and since then, Mary joined us, and then 2 other individuals, Heather Muir and Stuart Myrick. So we are now complete as of October 17th. Public outreach, we've done a few things in the last few months relating to the dietitians program. In October and November, at the time of transition, we had a couple of conference calls with Ms. King with the Texas Academy to update her on transition activities and see what feedback was coming from her members. I think we resolved a few questions and concerns that arose at that time. We also, I think, called you, Janet, a couple of times and let you know how things were going. So, we met with Linda Farr in person on February 2nd, and she also provided feedback from membership of the Texas Academy. And we looked into, I think there were a few issues presented that we looked into and resolved for her. And then, of course, we were in Georgetown on March 30th. So as I mentioned, we do remain focused on maintaining and improving the Phase 1 programs. The Phase 2 that I'm talking about happens November 1st, and you may recall the same bill that brought the dietitians program to TDLR, which was SB 202, had a second phase, and that's kind of what we're gearing up for now, and it's bringing 5 programs. Some diverse programs, offender education providers, mold assessors and remediators, laser hair removal facilities and personnel, sanitarians and code enforcement officers, as well as massage therapists. Those were all programs at DSHS. Most of those were housed in the same unit that the dietitians program was housed in. A major difference in Phase 2 is that those programs do not have regulatory boards now at DSHS as the dietitians program did. So we're gearing up to prepare for that. Again, November 1st is when that's going to happen. And we're confident that it's going to be successful just like Phase 2 was. Pretty much everything we did in Phase 1, we've looked at it, how successful it was, evaluated how we can make some improvements, and we plan to do the same thing for Phase 2, essentially. I guess that completes my report. Do y'all have any questions for me?
No, but thank you for the phone calls, giving me updates.
Sure.
You know, because then that way it's easy to disseminate the information when you hear people saying, oh, but I had trouble doing this. You're like, you know, very nice, thank you.
Sure. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Stephen. Okay, Education and Examination Division, Ray. Can I get some? I'm gonna get some.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the board. I'm Ray Pizarro, Director for the Education Examination Division. With me is Jerry Gonzalez for the Education Examination Division. You will no longer be seeing my face giving these reports. Passing the baton to Mr. Gonzalez. We like to try to, here at TDLR, to grow folks into leadership and put them in the hot seat so that they're able to experience different things. So when he starts doing these, make sure you ask those tough questions.
Start today.
So just see a few things of what's been going on with our division. we've been busy with, since phase one, and with all of the other programs that we currently administer in E&E, implementing and just administering those programs on a daily basis. We are now focused on phase two, and a lot of our employees are now geared up to start looking at those processes and how it's going to impact our division. Because out of the 6 programs that are coming over November 1, 5 of them are going to directly impact the operations of the Education Examination Division. As you can see in the report, we have begun auditing on CE, and we started that in February. And since then, everyone's been doing what they're supposed to be doing. Everyone we've audited have successfully provided us with the information that we requested, and their licenses are A-OK. If you notice down at the bottom of the report, you may ask, what's this $1 million and so forth, and $118,000 outstanding and record fees? There are a couple of programs that we regulate, and we administer the CE program, and we collect a fee on those programs, one being the tow truck program and the cosmetology and barber program. And those are record fees that they have to pay to the department, and those are some of the fees that you're looking at there. We are now finally in this building. If you have not heard the plan, as we continue to grow the department, for some reason, we're running out of room where to put bodies. And the EOT building downtown can no longer sustain all of the wonderful folks that are now come to the TDLR family. So they have moved the E&E division to this building. So we're now located in North Campus, and we're on the other side, on the west wing of the North Campus Hall. So in your time off, or before the meeting, or even after the meeting, if you guys feel you want to
take a tour.
Take a tour and come see us, you're welcome to. But that's pretty much all I have for you guys. If there's any questions for us, we'd be happy to answer them.
We're a quiet group today. No questions. Thank you.
Have a good day.
Thank you.
All
We'll
right.
save them up.
Save them up for Derek.
Yeah,
Jerry.
we'll work on our questions for the next meeting. All right, so now we've got the licensing division with Leonard. Oh, enforcement. Oh, I'm sorry. I just changed your title.
That's his name, so look.
Good evening, board. Good afternoon, board members. My name is Chris Funderburg with the Enforcement Division. My report is mercifully fairly brief, as there's been a little need for enforcement action within the dietitians program, primarily because there were no open cases transferred over from the DHSH to the department on the initial transfer. As you can see under key statistics, number of cases open 2, and of those cases, this has been since March of fiscal year 2017, there's been 1 closing, and that's been essentially all of the enforcement action in regards to specific cases. That said, there's been a variety of projects that we've been spearheading to help ensure that we have general protocols and procedures in place for the efficient and equitable resolution of dietitian cases as they come before us. The first of those you've already addressed at a prior board meeting. That was the criminal conviction guidelines. The second of the 2 projects is a vetting of expert witnesses. The Enforcement Division is developing a list of questionnaires and protocols to reach out to the dietitian communities in case we need to rely upon your expertise at a contested case hearing if the matter being alleged is a violation of standard of care. That project is ongoing, but I believe it should be resolved fairly soon. And then the last of the 3 is the penalty matrix for the dietitian program. I'm going to let Charlotte Melder address that later on in the agenda, but that is essentially a rubric that assigns, that classifies different violations as they're identified in the statutory and administrative laws that govern your program, and then arranges them into a hierarchy by order of, I guess, severity, you would say. But that's all I have. Do you have any questions for me? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Chris. Appreciate it. All right, now licensing division.
Good afternoon, members. Leonard Rivas with the Licensing Division. I provided you with initial and renewal application numbers for January through April 30th. The initial applications received were 154. The number of renewal application, 934. And the total population as of April 30th, 5,546, and 7 provisional licensed dietitians.
Yay, 5,000.
Yeah. Typically, we don't have issues with processing of dietitian applications. Pretty straightforward. We get the application, it's processed within 2 to 3 days from the time we receive it, so,
Very good.
yeah.
Could I ask a question?
Sure.
Are any of the provisional licensed dietitians new ones, or are those continuing?
I would have to check on that for you.
Thank you.
Okay. Anything else?
Way back when I started on the board, how many years ago was that, Stephen? Like 15 years ago, we barely cleared 3,000. So we like hearing
Yeah.
this. We like knowing that more of our professionals are licensed. Practice is growing. A good deal.
Okay. All right, thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, so do we need to discuss and talk about the action and possible action to recommend the approval of the penalty matrix?
Yes, we do. Mary Winston. We have someone coming from enforcement now, Charlotte
Okay.
Melder, and she will take this over.
Hello. My name is Charlotte Melder, and I'm coming up to you to talk about the penalty matrix. And some of you were actually on that group that discussed it. At the end of my presentation, I am going to be asking you to approve the penalty matrix so that it can go to our commission for approval and inclusion into our enforcement plan. Before I go into that, though, I do want to take a second to talk about the enforcement plan in general, where it came from, how it works, all of that. Chapter 51 does require our agency to create a matrix to be included in the enforcement plan. The penalty matrix is used by the industry and the public so that they can be put on notice of potential penalties and license sanctions that a person is subject to for any particular violation. So that's the public side of things. Within TDLR, the penalty matrix is used by our prosecutors so that if we decide to go forward with formal action or a formal violation, the penalty matrix helps us determine the penalty amount for a particular violation. Generally, we are bound by those ranges in the penalty matrix. We can go outside of them, but we have to get permission by our director, Christina Kaiser, in order to do so. It's rare that we ask, but sometimes we do. It would depend on the circumstances. The penalty matrix is not, it does not create more law. We did not in any way create something that didn't already exist. We simply lift violations out of the statute and rules from where they are and organize them into classes. So there's nothing new in this document. It does not obligate us to impose a penalty. So just because, for example, failure to properly notify the department of a name change is considered a Class A with a penalty range, if somebody is found guilty of that violation, and by found guilty I just mean, yeah, I didn't do it, we are not obligated to issue a notice of alleged violation and seek that penalty. This document does not create that obligation. We have the opportunity in every case to use our prosecutorial discretion, and we can close or warn. And in most cases for Class A, that is typically what we do. The matrix only comes into play when we choose to seek formal action. Overall, in the majority of cases, most are resolved by informal means, especially in the program where we don't have a lot of cases. We look for several factors, such as, is this a first violation? Was it corrected quickly? The severity of the violation, that sort of thing. Even when we do issue an NOAV and ask it for a penalty in the matrix, we can still settle the case for a penalty amount lower than the matrix amount. This is just a starting point, and we have been given permission to go below that. It's not binding on our commission, So if a case does go to our State Office of Administrative Hearings, which you'll hear SOA, if it does go to them and they come back and give a ruling or a proposal, the commission has the opportunity to go below or above, but in the majority of cases they go below if they alter it at all. They are only bound by the law, and the statute does require that for per penalty, per violation per day, it's $5,000. They cannot go above that. So how do we create this? We worked with the advisory board work group, Miss Mary Kate, Susie Weems, Irma Gutierrez, and Leanne Skinner, and I would like to thank everybody for helping us with that. Also, I want to thank Chris Funderburg, who was just up here, and Chris Russi, who's not here right now, and Christina Kaiser, also in those meetings, very important, laying all this out and setting it up. What it started off with is Chris Funderburg going through all of the laws and rules and taking everything that could be a violation and putting it in a document. So there are a lot of things in the laws and rules that don't create a violation. Those are not included in this. So then we put it all together and what we, with our experience, determine what we think would be the right order. Then we had our meeting, and our first activity was to group them in the right order, so from the least severe to the most severe of the violations. And hopefully you've had a chance to review the matrix and agree that the violations are set up in this fashion. But we also look at the wording of each violation, and since these are specific kind of laws and rules that we obviously don't have a degree in, it was important for us to make sure that we understood what was being conveyed, because every law and rule is actually paraphrased, so that something that's normally a paragraph is, you know, a sentence in this so that it could be easily followed. So we didn't want to summarize it and then change the intent of the law or rule, just so that it's clear. After that, we decide on the penalty and the sanction amount for each class. Within each class, you'll see that the violations are broken down and set out by subject matters. So you'll see administrative violations or actions inconsistent with medical authorization, that sort of thing. And that just, they're all within the same class, those titles, but that helps you find a violation easier. And there is the violation statute or rule number to the right that also helps you find. You could do a search if you're on the computer, if you're looking for something in particular. Then, for each class, we have a range of penalties or a dollar amount and possibly a range of sanctions. A sanction is anything that affects somebody's license. So the range is like, for example, Class A is $50 to $1,000. This is different than our current matrices. On those, we have not just one range. We usually have a set amount, and then we have a first violation, second violation, etc., third violation. The reason we're recommending not doing that in these programs, dietitians specifically, is because we need a more simple approach. We don't expect a lot of enforcement activity, and so having a second or third violation is not really going to come into play. And there are, and for the biggest reason actually, is in our recent past we've had some issues with SOA and defense attorneys and the public being confused about what is considered a second violation, what's considered a third. Does it have to be that exact violation? Anything in that range? Anything at all? And so it's been confusing to everyone. So we're wanting to get away from that. The side effect, though, is that we now have greater discretion to take the facts into consideration when setting that penalty amount. It still limits us so that we can be consistent amongst prosecutors, but we're able to take into consideration, oh, well, yes, this is a serious violation, but the person did correct it that same day, but and so we can reduce it down even if we decide to go forward with an enforcement action. This is a fluid document that allows us to be changed when the statute or rule changes, or if the industry feels like they want to go in a different direction. So by approving this today, you're not approving this forever. This is just what we're going to be working with as long as the commission approves it, going forward until you decide to revisit it. Anytime you ask for it to be revisited, we will reconvene the work groups and go forward from there. So I'm happy to walk through the violations and their placement and anything you'd like to talk about or If you feel comfortable that your review of the document that you've already done is sufficient, I can just open the floor to questions at this time, whatever you prefer.
I just had a question. I don't understand this one. It's a Class D, 5,000 plus revocation.
Yes.
Failed to pay the department for a dishonored payment?
Okay, that's statute. If somebody writes a hot check, and we say dishonored payment now, it used to be a hot check. But
Okay.
now you have credit cards and you can cancel that payment, that sort of thing. We are required to charge them a $50 fee, and if they don't pay that, or, most of the time it's for their license. If they canceled their payment for their credit card or wrote a hot check, they haven't actually satisfied the requirements for getting that license. And so then we would need to revoke it because they haven't paid the fee. So that's what that is in there for. It's we need
Seems
to-
like a really stiff
I
penalty.
know. But in that situation, it would just be revocation. We
Okay.
wouldn't be seeking the penalty.
right.
And I'm glad you actually asked that question, because the 5,000 plus revocation has to be worded that way, because we want to make sure anytime you see plus, it means and. We don't have the discretion to do the opposite. But the reason we put this in there the way it is because not everybody has a license at this top violation. So we want to have the ability to charge up to, that $5,000 amount. If they're cheating on a test, et cetera, and they didn't get their license, we're not going to seek revocation. But if it's they got their license and they didn't pay, we're going to seek revocation. So this just gives us the most options to get what is needed in the circumstances.
What kind of leeway is this for, like, oops, it bounced, and? how
If they
much-
pay it, all they have to do
how
is
much
pay
can I get it back?
They just pay the $50 fee.
At some point, like a month out? or
We
what?
send a letter. We send
Okay.
2 or 3 letters. So before it comes to enforcement, the finance sends a letter, and then our person who is in the enforcement division will send a follow-up letter. And if that is not responded to, then it gets referred to a prosecutor to seek revocation. So they're given, as long as they don't ignore their mail, which anybody listening, please don't ignore your mail. Respond to us. We really do want to talk to you. We really do want to work it out. The only time that people start seeing the higher level penalties and such is when they don't respond. Mhm.
Okay, so I have a question.
Yes.
So you said that there was leeway as relates to penalties. So is that within your group, you look at the circumstance of what's going on with the specific issue?
Yes,
and then-
absolutely.
okay.
And so the prosecutors, thankfully, are given quite a bit of discretion, because I've been here for 9 years, and I can tell you, I'm still seeing a first time something for a program I've been working for 9 years. It's like, how have I never seen this before? How has this situation never come up before? And it does, and for a program, not just new programs. So circumstances are always have different layers and levels, and you need to be able to look at all of those factors before setting a penalty. So, for example, if you've got somebody who sends in fraudulent documents, that sounds horrible. But when you start looking at it, and the person just didn't understand, actually took the class, but went to the bathroom when the certificates were handed out, thought he had to create his own certificate, but then he got proof that, oh, I actually was there and I took it, but they didn't give me one, so I thought I had to just make one. So it looks bad.
Yeah.
But,
Right.
so you got to be able to take into consideration the facts, and they're the craziest facts you can imagine. The one I'm giving you is not an example.
Yeah.
So an individual complains, and then it comes to your office, right?
Yes. Well-
And then somebody's going to look at that. Who looks at that and says, that's Class B or C or D?
Okay, the prosecutor is the one who applies the matrix. But I can tell you, a complaint comes in, the enforcement division has 3 sections. There's intake. They're the ones, the legal assistants and admin assistants actually take in the case. They enter it all into the system. Then it will go to an investigator. The investigator will contact the respondent, the person who's being complained about. They will contact the complainant. They will contact any witnesses. They will gather all the evidence and files. Then it goes to our prosecutor. Our prosecutor will evaluate all of the documents in the case and the investigative report. If they decide, yeah, this is not something I'm going to want to warn on, or this is something that I have enough evidence to proceed on, then they look at this penalty matrix. And then they say, okay, so let's see, where is 16.105A15? So they'll look at it and say, okay, that falls under a Class C. So my options are 1,500 to 4,000, and I have the opportunity to give a 1-year probated suspension up to revocation. And then they take into consideration the facts themselves, how bad it is, what the circumstances are, is this a first violation, that sort of thing, and they set that amount.
So are we ever involved in any way that they would contact us and say, what is your opinion about?
You would probably not be consulted on the penalty
Specifics,
amount,
right.
but you would be considered, I believe that you've actually sent in your survey result from the expert.
Right.
The investigators will contact, if there is an expert needed, to say, hey, is this a violation? Is this, that sort of thing? They will give you the documents and have you write up a report and send that in, and the prosecutor will read that. So
Okay.
at that time, when you're writing your report, you can say, you can give us your opinion, not about penalty amounts or anything, but just the severity of the facts as you see them when you're consulted as an expert. That's when you would weigh in, only if we felt like we needed an expert to weigh in on it. But like I said, there's been 2 cases. One of them was closed, so I don't see it happening often. But if it is needed, then it would.
I just wondered if some irritated client decided to turn you into the board, like, oh my gosh, you wouldn't know that you had even done anything to irritate the person.
You
So
would be
how-
notified. If a
Okay.
complaint is filed against you, you get an opening letter from our intake division saying, hey, a complaint has been filed against you. I'm not positive with the health-related programs how that all works, because I know that the policy is set, but I do know you get notice. The investigator will call you. The investigator will send you a letter. You will be contacted by 1 or 2 members of the enforcement division before it even gets to a prosecutor. So my understanding is that most of the prosecutors are actually contacting people beforehand, but they will not be a surprise to you that you have a case open against you.
Well, I would certainly hope never have one.
Yes, but you never know. People can complain about anything for any reason,
This
so
is
doesn't mean there's a
exactly
violation
true.
there.
So, thank you.
Yes.
Oh, I have a question about same section, Class C.
And that's Ms. Latner?
Yes.
Just for the record, your name.
Oh, this is Matilda Latner. Okay, where is that? Right here. Providing diabetes self-management training as a member of a multidisciplinary team without the required qualifications. Now, talking as a renal dietitian, half of my patients are diabetics. Many of them, we do review their labs on a monthly basis. Many of them have very poor glycemic control, diabetes control. So we educate. What exactly would they mean by self-management? Is it just medication management?
See, that's something I would ask an expert, because this
And
is
the
in
re-
the statute and rules.
Okay. and
So
they
I would
require-
ask them what they mean by that, because it's complicated.
Okay.
So,
this is very...
yes,
wide.
but this is something that's already in the law rules.
Okay.
We're just, based on the meetings,
Okay.
determined that this was a Class C level. But as far as if that were, somebody were to have been accused of violating that,
Mhm.
my guess is an investigator would ask an expert what the
Okay.
requirements are.
Okay. Thank you.
Can we take questions from our visitor?
My understanding, and Mary can answer this, is no. Comments can be made, but I don't think you guys can respond to public comments.
Yes. Unfortunately, or fortunately, because we have laws and that's a good thing, and rules and all that, but for public comment, it's given, but you're not allowed to ask questions. And so unfortunately, no. Not this go-round.
But I'll talk to her afterwards.
Yes, yes.
Did you have any other questions for me? Did you want to go through this any further, or were you ready to make a motion?
Are you all ready? All right, let's make a motion to recommend approval of the penalty matrix.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? All right, the motion carries. We'll go ahead and approve the penalty matrix. All right, so do we have any recommendations for agenda items for the next board meeting?
Wendy Pello, Assistant General Counsel. We would like to request that there be a standard of care work group report be added to the agenda for next meeting. There's an issue that we would like to send to those work group members. We haven't sent it yet, but we'll have that discussion and then have the work group report back at the next advisory board meeting.
All right, sounds good. And I think you all have a list of who's on the standard of care work group. It's myself, Matilda, and Letty. Okay? Anything else for the agenda for next time? All right, well, let's talk about our next meeting. The month of November looks pretty good. Anybody have any dates that they would like to suggest?
And Mary Winston, I just want to put on the record that, you know, we're in the middle of session, and so we have lots going on. Fortunately, not with dietitians. So during the summer, not having a meeting for you guys will allow the work group to meet, and we have a slew of other boards that are going to meet. So this will not rush your schedules to get this standard of care, because it's one of the more important things that you need to work on. And in November, just holidays other than that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and the thing is, it also give you all a chance to work on phase 2.
True, thank you.
So let's look at the beginning of November. Maybe November 3rd,
That's a Friday.
Friday?
That sounds good to me.
November 3rd is a Friday.
November 2nd, November 3rd, whichever works.
I prefer the
I
3rd.
love the Friday idea.
Me too.
Okay. All right. We'll do it on Friday this time. All right, so let's pencil in November 3rd for our next board meeting. And we'll go ahead and keep it at the same time and same location, because it allows people to drive in and drive out on the same day if that's what they desire. All right. If there's nothing else, I'm going to go ahead and adjourn the meeting. Do I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
I'll move on that one.
This is Susie Wayne.
Second?
Second.
All right, all those in favor? All those against? All right, we're adjourned. And it is 52.
And thanks very much.